My name is Michael Voigtländer. I live with Billy since 2018, so I see him every day unless I'm traveling to the United States. And first I want to tell you a little bit about Billy and as it says already in the title, like the play on the mission, and then later on the creation energy teaching. Then there's a Q&A when you have questions, and please wait until the end, and then I will answer all your questions. Billy was born in 1937, and he's on the right-hand side. And so he had several brothers and sisters. And yeah, he describes his upbringing as basically happy, and but he actually had a very harsh childhood because he was a Verdingkind, which is like children that were taken away from the parents and had to work somewhere basically as slaves. And that's a very dark history in Swiss history. But he had to go through that. And but it made him rather stronger. But many children suffered very much under that, of course. And that's a photo with him, like with a dog, and in the background is his grandmother. He started to, he was hassled a lot already as a child because he spoke the truth, and he also had a contact person, Swart, which started when he was 5 years old, who taught him a great deal, and we only know a tiny fraction of what Swart told him. And he was his first main teacher until he was 16 years old. And since he, in school and later on, spoke the truth, he often had a hard time and wanted to get away. And then he went to joined the French Legion and French Foreign Legion to get away out of Switzerland. And that started his travels. And there's a lot that went on, but it would just take too long to explain all that or to tell all that. He was also wrongly imprisoned, but that were all experiences he had to make, and he rather grew on it than that it broke him. And then in 1964, he went also to India, and there was the grandfather of Phobol, Dhammavara, and so to study about Buddhism. And these are a couple of photos which Phobol witnessed, but also all the others who were present there at the time. The beam ship, as Billy calls them, or the spaceship of Ascot, who was the second contact person of Billy. And Phobol met Ascot herself. So this is another photo taken by Billy, which we still have. He lost many, many photos at the Jordan border. They took it away from him. And this is even a photo from the spaceship down on a small one. There's no person in there. It's called a telemeter disc, which we would say is like a drone. And so what you see down there is a mountain range. So he was also on board of the ships, and not just talked and met her, but was also taken aboard and on many travels. In 1975, his official mission started, official in that sense that he went public with the information and wrote down his contacts, known as the contact reports. and they're all for free to read on the internet in English and German, and they're also translated to Spanish now. And that started in 1975, January the 28th, when he met Semjase for the first time. And this is a photo of this first meeting. And these are a couple more photos I just want to show you rather quickly. He has like the best UFO photo archive in the world. There's no one who comes even close to it. I mean, just this one, it's crystal clear, and who shoots a UFO from beneath, you know? It's like, here, this is a very famous one. So, like a small part from it was taken by the X-Files, and I want to believe. So, if you've seen X-Files and Fox Mulder's office, there's a poster, and many people wanted to know who took that photo, but you know, they chased many lights in the sky, but never found their way to Switzerland, to the to the photographer of this one, which he had on the wall. But you see, that is very common. That many of you have seen the photos, even if you're not familiar with the Billy Meier case. If you look through all his photos, you will have seen them. And if you have ever seen a UFO documentary, like in half of them at least, there's a photo, at least one, of Billy. Though again, they have a hard time finding the way to Hinterschmidt-Rüti, and but that's the way it is. And this is like also from another beam ship, and there's again a telemeter disc, like the small one, and the bigger one is also manned. That's taken in Switzerland. Now, this was a situation where he took people to a contact, which he was not supposed to do. And that was like where they became very strict and said, you can't do that or we stop the contacts. And so then he stopped doing that. And it was just as a favor to them, and that was well intended. But the player are now very clear. Billy is our only contact person, nobody else. We don't meet anyone, because if we would, then it would start like he said that and she said this. So they say we talk to one person and that's it. So and the thing about this is Semjase then tried to destroy the photos. She kind of didn't know what to do, was a bit confused, and then decided she tried to destroy it, but it didn't really work. So that's why it's a bit hazy, why it's not so clear. And the thing is that some could see it, some couldn't. That's also kind of strange. And then also, like in this, you think they are not aware of it, and that's really true. They couldn't. They can open like how much, door of vision, you could say, and only Billy could see it with the camera, but they couldn't see it. It's like very small angle that they only opened up, but usually they are kind of hidden, that you're not visible. There again, they stand there like they're not completely unaware of the beam ship. This is one that was in his street. There's also, for example, it looks a bit strange, like it looks a little bit translucent. And so there are several of his photos that look strange, or they have like, where it's hard to explain why it looks that way. But I talked to Jim Delestoso, and he said, there are some photos are strange, but they couldn't find any fake or any manipulation or wrongdoing or whatever that way. So that is like the main thing, that they couldn't find any manipulation. There's say, oh, this is a fake because of that and that. So they found like strange things, but never anything that clearly said, oh, this is a hoax. This is again from inside, looking out through one of the portholes. And the reason why it's kind of yellowish, greenish, is that the window has a different color depending on the atmosphere. So when they land on a planet, they can already see by the color of the windows if they can breathe there or not, and so on. So in this case, it was kind of green light. So it's okay. This is like close to where we live, like 20 minutes. I think that's a nice. It's a Pfeffiker Lake. So it's what could I say? It's like, yeah, these are, he also took some which are like really nice photos. It's not just documentation, but the last two I thought are kind of like, the light is like just perfect. And here they are kind of, it's like a small 3 of them. He also filmed that on Super 8. And all 3 are moving a little bit at the same time. And there's a branch in the foreground as a reference, so you can tell about the size, and they're about 21 feet in diameter. And so he also shot it on Super 8. But lots of it got, almost all of it got, is lost because it got stolen and then sold behind his back. So he had to buy his own photos back from someone that had them. And so we only have copies. We don't even have any originals anymore. So since he kind of spoke the truth from the very beginning, he encountered also problems. And this is like where he lived in Hinwil. And there was a first attack on his life there. And that's the shot through the window. He was on the first floor. And the really interesting, the bullet just missed his head just by an inch or so. But the very interesting story about that attempt is that it was a woman, and she came later to him, like many years later, and said, I did that. And I said to Billy, well, I wouldn't have done that, you know, that he could have gone to the police and so on. And he said, when people become virtuous, then they also become courageous. And I thought that is a very interesting thought, that courage is based in kind of decent way to live. And she started to read. She was in a sect, a religious Christian sect, and they're very fundamentalist. And she started then at some point, she just did that because she kind of was told. And she believed what they told her, that this is an evil man and he has to go. And she at some point started to read Billy's material and then said that this is all okay, this is not bad. So, and then she started to read more and more and learn more and more, and then finally made the decision to see him. And I would love to meet her, but he kind of keeps her hidden. Now that's I just show you a couple of that there were 25 attempts on his life, and the first one was in India, and the second one was in Hinwil, and this is another one. And the interesting thing here is that he dreamt this beforehand several times. So then he knew that there's something up. So this is like serious. And he dreamt that a bullet would hit him at a certain point in the chest. And so he had a metal plate made by Jacobus, who's a core group member. And so he had it made, and he went to the place where it would happen, where he wanted to go that day anyway. And then it happened right there, and the bullet struck on the plate. And I said, then as a kind of, this is also up over the plate so you can see the bullet holes or where it went through his agenda. And but Billy was also armed and retaliated by shooting the head of the assassin's head. And so as a warning, not to think twice, maybe. And so they just found this head. And the thing is also, I asked him, Billy, this plate is pretty small, you know? So, and he said, well, I can rely on my dreams pretty much. So that was an interesting story, like how precise his dreams are. He said this is Wendell Stevens, who, as we found out just a few years ago, was also on the spacecraft with Ascot. And they even knew each other before the investigation team that was led by Wendell Stevens. They came in 1978 to Hinterschmidt-Rüti at the very beginning. And they already knew each other since 1969 or something like that. And anyway, Wendell Stevens kept his mouth shut all his life. And also we had no idea. So Wendell Stevens brought the investigation team to Hinterschmidt-Rüti with Britt and Lee Elders and Tom Welsh. And then Jim Dilatoso did all the research, or most of the scientific research in the United States. And yeah, they tried everything, like the lie detector test, and the photos were analyzed, the audio was analyzed, and they couldn't find anything wrong with it. And actually, some of it was very interesting, like the metal samples. And they were sitting here on this couch, and there was also an attempt on his life. So kind of Billy kind of ducked and kind of moved his head forward to duck. And Wendell thought, what is he doing? No, is he a cramp or whatever? And then a split second later, the bullet hit right where his head was. And Billy has this kind of, he somehow senses that, like, except for once where he didn't. But he usually, he senses that. And then kind of moves out of the way in the last moment. And there's also, this is behind the house, and he's pointing. The bullet missed him, fortunately, and hit the shed. Like there's a plastic window, and there's a bullet. So he said several times to me, Michael, you have to be careful what you're saying. And, but in general, the times are improving, that the whole subject matter is not so ridiculed anymore and taken more and more seriously, and it's opening up. So that's a good sign. Unfortunately, it's opening also up like that it's a threat, and that is of course not realistic, because if they were a threat, and there are several groups, the Plei are not just one group that are here, they could have conquered the world a long time ago. So they wouldn't wait until we have the weaponry to do that, but that's big money. So the agenda is not, they're opening up, but there's also an agenda now played, which is more weapons and yeah. But here he has a real weapon, and so like the skeptics said, oh, that's just a toy. Well, this toy, the weapon is from Menara, and she gave it to Billy for a couple of days. And I think it's Alena, but another contact person who is holding the weapon here in his office. And she's outside, and you can see they wear different clothes. But all that also depends on where they are, what situation, and so on. But this weapon just shoots a hole through a tree easily. So So he had to give that away back, of course. And they investigated, and the tree is still there, but it's kind of it died, and now there's only kind of a small part of it left. And they also fired it in the forest, and they were looking where there were kind of burn marks. And so they followed it for about more than half a mile, and there still were burn marks throughout the forest. So it's an extremely powerful weapon, and it's like a ray weapon or impulse weapon, and it just punches through everything. And that's an old weapon for them, you know. So here that's like where they landed, like on like in front of the house. In the background you can see the house, and Billy's wife at that time just left for 15 minutes, and when she came back there was this big hole in the ice right there. So that was a surprise. And yeah, it was thick ice, you know. To do that like in 15 minutes, that would be really hard. And here that's a photo where we call it the wedding cake UFO landed there, and that were photos. When I saw them, I thought, why haven't I seen them? That's like when I discovered those, I was really awestruck, I must say. It looked so real, I thought, and why have I never seen these photos? And also like this, it's like close up, and so who has this kind of photos, you know? Here again, this looks a little bit strange, you know, with the car, and it looks a bit like miniature. But they couldn't find any, and Billy says he doesn't know himself why it sometimes looks strange. Maybe the beam ship, like the rays of it or so, the energy field influences the film, but they couldn't find, as I said, no wrongdoing. And the interesting about this is, like I said, where's the light source? What lit it, you know? And he said it's illuminated itself. So the light on the beam ship is not from a lamp somewhere. It's illuminating. What you see there is the illumination that comes from the beam ship. So there are so many mind-boggling things, and they don't use this design anymore. That was a completely different technology, and they don't pursue that kind of technology anymore. That is a beam ship which is like of light, but it's actually a solid one. But they camouflage, which I find as funny, to camouflage with light. But that's what they kind of. They're very small beings, like 3 feet tall or so. Ziltona are called, and they camouflage themselves with these light around their ship. And I mean, that has, many have like witnessed like globes of light or balls of light in the sky. So, but there are all kinds of versions, and I can only speak about the Plejaren because they're in contact with Billy. I don't know about the other groups. They always, and the Plejaren are not in contact with them. They don't want to have contact with them. So, I mean, Billy knows about them, but he doesn't talk about them. Or some he knows certainly, and because that's not what it's about the teaching and bringing the truth. And whether there are 3 groups or 4 groups, or whether they're living in the Himalayas underground or not, that are actually not extraterrestrials, that are also terrestrials, but they're kind of high tech. But yeah, you wouldn't find them anyway, he says. And so it makes little sense to think a lot about that. Where you of course you can research it, but it's all guesswork. And but with Billy's material, that is like, that goes to the essence, where like they're also talking about things that are happening now, like the Ukraine war or what's happening in Israel, and so and they're not mincing words. So if you read the contact reports for the first time, you will be probably a little shocked how straightforward he discusses everything with them, and also what they're saying. And that was a kind of a funny incident where people came and they have like acidic skin, and they touched the hood. They just wanted to know what it feels like, or the touch of it. And they had like 6 fingers and a thumb, and there's also the fingerprints. And so I asked Billy, where's the hood? Where's the hood? You know? And like, that's kind of where I also wonder sometimes why this can get, nobody cares about it and is not preserving it, but it's kind of, it got lost, you know, and we don't know where it is anymore. These are kind of photos that other core group members took, like on vacation or so. And here's also like on the left-hand side, at the very small, here's a very strong enlargement. So it's not only Billy took photos, but also other people from the core group. And this is, for example, taken at night by a neighbor who kind of was always sneaking around and trying to find out if this is really true or not. And then, I mean, he must have spent many, many nights out there. But at one night, kind of Quetzal said, okay, this is your lucky night. And so that it became visible, the ship, and he photographed it at night. And so there, and it's a completely different style also. You see it's with a long lens, etc., and it's at night. And that was someone living close by here who died meanwhile. And he came then to Billy and brought him the photos and said, your case is real. It's you're telling the truth. But don't tell anyone, you know, that's always the story also in the neighborhood, you know, like, I've seen spaceship or craft over your house, you know, but don't tell anyone. So, but that's okay. These are landing tracks. Now they have a different technology where there are no landing tracks anymore. And they remain for a long time, but then after a couple of years, the grass comes up again. This is his latest photo. Basically, doesn't take photos anymore. But like last year in February, Bermuda, another contact person, said to Billy, there's an object in Washington, D.C. Let's check it out. So then Billy said, well, I'll be gone for maybe 1.5 hours. And said that I heard him say that, and also Eva. And then he goes to his office, and well, then you can look for him all over the place. He's simply not there anymore. And then like 1.5 hours, 2 hours later, he came back with a Polaroid. And this is the Polaroid he took in Washington, D.C. at night. It was like 4:30 in the morning. And Polaroids are really difficult to fake. So, but I mean, you can fake anything today. So it's not, but that was like an object, even Bermuda didn't know what it is. And it's what they call the foreigners, whatever group it is. And the moment Billy took this photo, there was probably a flash from the Polaroid camera, and it probably picked that up. And then there was this flash of this object, and it just disappeared in an instant. And so it illuminated the Capitol, you know. It was a really bright flash, but nobody came out. So at the time we were not supposed to show it because Tar said, you know, they wouldn't be too happy in Washington. about their security. So, but half a year later, he said, "Okay, you can put it out now." Yeah, these are what I call hard evidence. These are metal samples they gave him, and the interesting thing is like that is something you cannot fake. So Marcel Vogel, an IBM research scientist, and he was a true expert on metallurgy and other fields. And he invented, for example, the floppy disk. He looked at it and also showed it to like 7 of his colleagues. And they all shook their head and said, we don't know how it could be put together. Because he called it then a cold fusion process where the metals, if we heat them and then they kind of flow into each other, you cannot keep them separate. So, but they're connected, but there's like nickel, copper, and the third one, they're separate. They're linked, but the metal itself, the element stays in as one. So you have like a piece of copper and a piece of nickel, and it's joined, like there's a seam, but we couldn't do that because it would just flow into each other when we reach the melting point. So we cannot glue it together, kind of, but they can, but with metal. So Marcel Vogel, and there were also other things he discovered. He said he has no idea how it can be done, and his estimate was that we can do this maybe in 200-300 years. So, and that is really hard evidence. This is like even secret science, like which also exists, of course. We are not told about or so, but that is maybe 30 years ahead or 40 years ahead. But this is like at least 200 years, something like that ahead. And he said, and here you can tell a little bit like it's a bit like rainbow colors in the middle. And you see the one metal part on the right-hand side and the other element on the other side, on the left-hand side. And also another example that is in the office of Jaime Maussan in Mexico, who's a friend of Billy, and reported on him in Mexico regularly and truthfully. And he had this in his office, and I said, what is that? And he said, well, it fell from the sky and in Mexico. And the impact was so immense that it killed a cow in 100-meter distance. So that was a really hard impact. And so they investigated what it is, and they found that it's 80% titanium, 10% vanadium, and 10% aluminum. Now, the strange thing is that they went with a torch to it that had like 4,500 degrees Celsius, it says, and all they could do to it were like these black spots. It just didn't melt, and it should have melted at that temperature. So a torch couldn't do anything. So simply by putting these different elements together in a certain way, it becomes so durable that the heating or the melting point is much higher. And so Jaime Maussan made a show about this, like 20, 30 minutes or so, and said, any scientist interested in this, we'd love to share the information, and please contact us. And as you can imagine, nobody contacted him, even though it was on national television. And there's not only a kind of a closed-mindedness in religion or so, but also in science and or belief system, actually. Nothing can go faster than the speed of light. Almost every physicist will say that, though that cannot be true, because otherwise they couldn't come here if they were traveling at the speed of light. They go much, much, much faster. That's a shot of Hinterschmidt-Rüti, and there were almost no trees in the beginning, and it started like in March, April 1977, and now if you would stand at the same spot, it would be you couldn't see it. There are so many trees and plants and So this is a core group photo, and the core group is like part of FIGO. FIGO is the club Billy founded. It's about a dozen people in 77, 78, then they actually founded. And the mission of the FIGO is to spread the teaching of Billy in a non-missionary way, and to preserve it for the future as best as we can. And so the core group is like close to him, and they basically commit their life to that task or to that mission. And he also calls it like his mission, and we also call it like our mission. And so some of us live with Billy, and a few of us, but most of them are living close by, or an hour away or so. And we meet like twice a month, but mainly the first weekend. That's for like when, it's a long day then when we all come together and have our meetings. This is another one, and Billy was also visited like by like a Native American who kind of heard of Billy and then came all the way. And you might know her. And she came for 2 or 3 weeks, stayed. She came with Bill, Britt and Lee Elders. And there's a bit of a funny story. She called Lee Elders and said, I want to go to Hinterschmidt-Rüti and see this Billy Meier. And he just said, we don't do tours, and hung up the phone on Shirley MacLaine. So, and then she called again and said, no, I'm serious, I want to go there. And so they met, and and then she wrote a book later, and she also met other contact persons. And when it comes to other contact persons, I always ask just one question: is where's the evidence? And when there's no evidence, I don't have a second thought about it. So, and that's usually the case. They just have stories. And when it comes to the Plejaren or Pleiadian, as they were called in the beginning, there is no other contact person. So, whether people, sometimes they're really believing that and they're deluding themselves, but many of them are liars simply, or want attention, And that's the difference with Billy. He doesn't want attention. He doesn't want to give interviews, and it's really hard to motivate him just for Jaime Maussan or whoever, just to get an interview. Phobol and Billy met in India, and Phobol saw Ascot and also the others there. And the nice thing in India was, like Billy said, nobody bothered us. He could walk around with Ascot like for an hour, and they could talk, and nobody would come up to them. And then there's no problem. So they saw Ascot many times. But like in our culture, whether it's America or Europe or so, people would run up to them and, hey, who are you? And are you not from here? Or, you look strange, or your clothes are different, or whatever. And of course that's the end of it. So, we often make more problems than there need to be. It's they're simply more respectful in India when it comes to that. And they knew, like they said, oh, that's the woman from the stars, it's like, but didn't make a big deal of it. And in the middle is like Britt and Lee Elders. And Britt is now giving lots of talks, and I'm very grateful that she kind of now speaks openly, gives podcasts, and also on the internet. It helps to that she talks about her experiences and tells the truth and helps spread the mission and the word. This is like footsteps of an elf. So they are about a foot tall, human beings, and they really do exist. And but they're extremely shy, and we will never get to see them. But in that case, Billy saw it, the elf, and I think also one of his sons. But the dog barked, and it was gone very quickly. But I had a friend, and she has like this connection to animals, like horses come up to her, and wild squirrels, and so just crawl up on her, and so she has this connection. And as a child, she was lying in the grass, looking up in a tree, and there she saw these little beings. And for her, as a child, oh yeah, okay, you're there. And so I think they were not afraid because of her energy, kind of, as you might say. And so that's why I took this in, and this is like I find it an amusing story. And that tiny footprints, like little more than less than an inch, the foot. And so these are like where Billy kind of showed that the consciousness can also interact with physical matter very much. And so a couple of times they kind of said, Billy, show us something or so. And to me, he said, I said to him, this is like not necessary. I don't have to see that or so. And he said, yeah, it's basically foolish stuff, but he did it anyway, and to kind of, satisfy their curiosity or so of the core group members. And now Uri Geller is also known for doing that. And for example, in the contact reports, there's a very interesting explanation that it's different in his case, that he has this ability to influence the consciousness of other people, and together they have then this energy to do that. So it's not actually him, but it's actually the crowd that are doing it. And but in Billy's case, it's definitely him who is doing this. And so he's just holding it like in his head. I didn't see it, but I saw him once bend a 2 franc, like that's a 5 franc, but on the right hand side, that's a 2 franc Swiss 2 francs, and he had it in his hand and like clenched like a fist, and when he opened the hand, it was bent. And you can try, you don't bend it, no matter how hard you try, especially in your palm. But even also with your fingers, you can bend it to franc piece. And so he explained to me that I said, I don't think it comes from the strength of your hand. Your flesh is just too soft, and so how do you do it? And he says he just, his willpower and the power of his consciousness, he wants this to happen, and then it happens. So this is just a demonstration, if you're really controlling your consciousness, that there's immense power there. But it's also exhausting. It's not like what you can do all the time. This is like you're lifting like a very heavy weight or so. You can't do that all the time. But it shows the potential in our consciousness. And also this was like, and I asked Jacobus about it. He did this shot. It's like 200 meters. That's like over 600 feet away. And it was already dark. So he did it with a pistol, So I said, Billy, how do you, at that distance, in the dark, Jacobo said he just saw this white piece of paper where they put the stamp on. So they hung up this white piece of paper with a stamp, and Jacobo said he could barely see this white piece of paper because it was so dark already. And yeah, Billy shot the stamp like over this distance with a pistol. And I asked him, how do you do that? It's like, and he said, it's if you can really focus, then, and I mean, he's also good with guns, but then you can do that. And it shows like this is not essential now, like for the evolution of the consciousness, but it shows how important concentration is and what you can accomplish. If you're focused in your job, or then things go your way or go better or smooth. And so but his power of concentration is quite remarkable, and it's something you cannot see in a person. It's just, but here's a demonstration that it's possible. And this is Swart, his first contact person, and he died about 2 weeks or so after the contact with him ended in 1953. And he was very special because the Plejaren cannot spend much time with us. They'd say, like, our energies would basically drag them down, and they would actually devolve, and they would start thinking illogically and irrationally, and all that would kind of come through also in their behavior. But it didn't matter how much time he spent with, he did many travels. For example, once they were for 3-4 months in the jungle, living with natives there, deep in the jungle in South America. And they were very peaceful, and not like, some are very warrior-like, but this group of people, these natives, were extremely peaceful, and they stayed there like 3 or 4 months with them. And Billy said he never heard an argument among them, and there was always this harmony and peacefulness. And Swart was living there with him. And I don't know what they told them to live with them, but it was no problem. And also Swart could contact and meet anyone, and it didn't affect him. And that is different. The other Plejaren, they cannot spend much time with us. Then it's like their behavior changes, and it shows how much also we influence each other. It's like they're saying, tell me who your friends are and I tell you who you are. And so you can tell by the friends often, is this a good influence for me or not? So you choose your friends wisely. And but Swart was special that he could mingle with us anytime. And that is Asket, the second contact person. And she lives very far away, like actually in a different creation, which is, it's really, that would take too long to explain, but like it's like our universe is just what we see as a visible universe is only a small part of the creation. There are different regions which are non-physical, and she is living in a twin universe. So it's extremely far away. But he took a journey there in 1975. They took him there for a few days. And when he left, there was Olga Walder. She was also around Billy at that time. And she saw how he left. And then a few hours later, he came back, but he had like a 5-day beard. So he was gone longer than just a couple of hours. And that's when they took him to this other universe, basically. That is Semjase, and the third contact person. And now he has like, most of his contacts are now with Quetzal, and also like Ta, that's the father of Semjase, but he doesn't come that often right now. And then there are many more. There are over 60 contact persons by now already. But these are the main persons. And this is another photo of Ascot, but it's not so clear. And there's lots of controversy about it, but that is not so important. That's another one. And they were manipulated and given back to Billy, and also wrong ones. And yeah, they simply tried to discredit him. And but it didn't really work out in the end. This is a text that was someone had in England, and someone took a photo of it. He bought it from Egypt, and in the middle there are the names of the prophets, and Elia, Jesaja, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, also known as Jesus, Muhammad, and Billy. And so somebody took this photo, and then it was later translated. And so Billy was already known, like, and this is like 8,000 years old, this piece of paper. It's estimated like that old. So that is like kind of the introduction to the case. But now why are they here? And that's where it gets interesting. So they're here to let us know that we are, let me explain this way. The Plejaren and us have, like, a long time ago, we have common ancestors. And also in the past, like long time ago, Plejaren came, and at that time they were still warlike. They didn't have this permanent peace. And some of them came here and said, like, oh, they are easy to manipulate. So they wanted to manipulate the people and control them. And others said, no, we shouldn't do that. So others left. And they basically now came back 13,500 years ago. And because the other ones who stayed here created religions to control the people. That is like the ultimate control, because you cannot question that religion, whatever it is. So, and of course, some religions probably arose by themselves, or other people started, but in general, they started this indoctrination process through religion. And you don't question your priest, you don't question the Pope, you don't question God, for example, in Christianity. And so it is also in other religions. And now what the Buddha, Billy writes, originally taught, that is not real religion, because it's not indoctrination. It's like to meditate and to really find to yourself, and it's not to worship the Buddha. So, but in every religion this comes in, this worshipping thing, and to say things are holy and all this, that is like what the Buddha originally taught was very, very close to what Billy is teaching. But that is also unfortunately, is getting lost more and more. And, but in general, the religions are, as they say, erroneous teachings. And when it becomes really strong, then it can lead to schizophrenia. And like when somebody is fundamentalist, no matter what you say, even if it's completely factual, they just don't listen. And that is then when this indoctrination process has kind of taken completely control of that person, that the person is not even able to look at the evidence anymore, or at the facts. And then I think it becomes easier to understand how much control that is. And and also that they say that as long we will have religions, we will have war. We cannot have peace on a permanent basis as long as we have religions. And if you look at it, if you look at Israel now or many other wars, it's again, the root is religion. And even within the religions. So that is, of course, a message that many people don't like, and they don't want to confront that. And I grew up in a Christian family and then became Tibetan Buddhist, and then had to find out that both is nonsense. And that is not so comfortable. I mean, that is not a process that happens like overnight. It took me years. In the beginning, I was interested in what Billy wrote, and but that's not so good, you know. And at one time, I even threw one of the Samyasa blocks against the wall. You know, I was so infuriated about what he wrote. But then after a while, I said, well, what if it's true? You know, or what if it were like that? And so, and that is like this inner work that is really hard, because we are all more or less programmed. If we are not programmed through religion, then it's like through commercials and materialism, which is also a belief system. And also atheists, I said, well, they don't believe in God and so on, or religion. And Billy says, yes, but they are still non-believers. And as long as you believe, you don't know. And so the believers all die not knowing. And so if you want to know, then you have to make experiences. And that's where the other work starts. It's not only the thinking, you have to kind of open your thinking, like, okay, what if that's true? And think about that for a while. But then also like, okay, how can I find confirmation? And that is like this effort to do this again and again, go through that. Well, maybe there is a God, you know, so he's just hiding somewhere. But if you cannot detect it, whether neither inside nor outside, then the conclusion must be that there is none. And unless you find it someday. But they say you won't. And also whatever the belief is. And it is to come to knowing. And that's kind of then the path to wisdom. That you make experiences and that your thoughts go so deep, and that you, whether you do it analytically or then kind of intuitively, that you reach at the point where you know, reality is this and this and this, and not what others tell me. And ultimately, of course, everyone lives in his own reality. Nobody's reality is completely the same, or dimension, kind of, as we view the world and so on. But there are things where you can say, this is detectable and this isn't. And so the spiritual part comes in also where the player and say, like, there are also subtle energies which we cannot measure yet, but which are there. And what I mentioned earlier, like that one should choose friends carefully, it's with this energy they give us and we give them, and that can be like that you increase or in your wisdom, or that they challenge you in a positive way, and vice versa. And these, or when you meet someone, you immediately have like a feeling, kind of like that person kind of feels right, you know, or good. And in German we have the saying, we are on the same wavelength, you know. And when you're on the same wavelength, you get along with that person like, oh, like I knew that person for a long time, but you met that person the first time in your life. And this is like this subtle energies. And so then you can, if you kind of learn to control your thoughts and learn to think in a neutral, positive way, which is really important. It's not like you cannot be always positive. Right? There are lots of books about positive thinking, which is good. Well, like when you're depressed, then it would be really good to focus on positive thinking. But that is not what you can kind of, and that's not the aim to maintain that permanently. But neutral positive is like, yeah, like you're in equanimity, that's like neutral. But when you're kind of, maybe we all have a bad day. And so when I feel kind of down or depressed or whatever, or aggravated by someone, then, and I notice, then I say to myself, oh, now focus more on positive. Like, get yourself out of that hole with your feelings. And then things start to lighten up. You know, it takes maybe half an hour or an hour, and then, oh, okay. And then I'm more in this neutral positive range again. And yeah, so it's like not only to learn completely truthfully and logically, and but then also to make this experience with your feelings, that you kind of learn to control your feelings. And then, of course, also your actions. So many times people, like you say, like just the wrong word. You don't even mean it in any bad way, but they kind of immediately are like offended. And that is like they are not in control of their feelings and actions at all, and what they're saying. And when if you look at like where things escalate, like war or so, or gangs or whatever, that is like you just give them a wrong look and they might shoot at you. So you see that they're completely not in control of their thoughts and feelings and even their actions. So so that is of course an extreme example, but you will also notice it's a constant challenge. Even if you once learned to think rather neutral positively, it's a challenge every day anyway. Billy also has his bad days, or when he's maybe a little bit impatient, or the energies nag him and give him a hard time, and so we are all human, and that's also kind of that we have to work on ourselves every day. So we never stop learning. So it continues forever, and or for an extremely long time. And also what they say is that we have to take self-responsibility. So that is like the key. When you say, oh, God says this, or my priest says this, then you're not taking responsibility. You say, oh, you give the responsibility away. And they say that is universal. Like whatever planet or whatever being, you are responsible for your thoughts and your feelings, and not someone else. So that is what they want us to learn. And the truth is like facing the truth, like is often uncomfortable. For example, when Billy speaks about becoming a true human being, then many would say, oh yeah, I'm a true human being. And of course, everybody is a human being of us. But a true human being, as Billy means, is, for example, a true human being would never support war under no circumstances, except in the sense to stop kind of a war or so, like to bring in troops to stop a war. But also only that it's just stopped. And in German, there's a word which he uses often and which is not translated. It's called ausgeartet. It means that it's out of its natural way. And for us to kill each other is completely unnatural. It's completely below our dignity. It's a true human being would never even have that thought to kill someone, and this is like normal in this city too. You know, it's like not strange to wake up and hear in the news someone got killed there or here. And that is like where I also asked Billy, well, how they must also have conflicts once in a while. And he says, yeah, they have arguments, and it can even become kind of heated argument, but it never gets out of control. So this Ausartung, that doesn't exist with them. They always are aware that, okay, it can get heated to the certain point, but then they say like, well, you don't understand or whatever, or you don't want to understand, and then it's over, but it would never escalate. And that is where many of us are still far away from. And and there are like many other issues to that, like becoming compassionate. That's really important. And that is also, just because someone becomes a FIGU member or so, doesn't mean he becomes a compassionate person overnight or so. They have interest in what Billy writes and they see that there's truth in it. But if they don't work on themselves, they will not evolve in consciousness properly. And it's not about becoming a FIGU member or so, but he says it's good to have like a guide. He said everything could be discovered by just watching nature and other people. You can learn everything, but it would take very, very, very long, much, much longer than we live. So it's good to have like a good teacher who knows the truth and can teach it, and to learn from him or her. And so this role model is there also like on error there. So for example, they have like they call it 2,700 spiritual guides, but they are just guiding the person. So a person you can go to who is more evolved, or generally thought to be more evolved at least, and you can ask him like personal questions, but you don't have to. And it is not a guru situation where you're depending on your guru. They're not dependent. It's really a friend, and you can ask questions or where you can seek advice. And that's how I see Billy too, how I go to him, Billy, hey, I have a question here, and what do you think? And sometimes, you get advice where you thought, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have asked him, then it's kind of advice you don't want. But I noticed that when I follow his advice, it always turns out good. So I'm really lucky to have him, and to be able to go to him anytime and ask him for advice, or when I have questions which are kind of moving me, that he can answer them and gives me always a wise answer. But mainly that it, like, even sometimes when I had doubt, is this like this, I don't know if this is good advice, but I do it anyway. So I did that a couple of times, and it turned out well. And so then I saw, he could already see further, he could see deeper. And so we are extremely lucky to have him. And it's a pity that I said, Billy, scientists should like queue up at your door, begging for an interview, or to that you would talk to them, because explaining the creation is that the Big Bang is true, that happened, but there's a lot more to the creation. The creation is not just the physical matter. And when you read some of Billy's material, the numbers are just gargantuan, and it's everything so much bigger and more diverse, the universe and the creation, than most of us, I think, can even imagine. And so he's painting this huge big picture, and no academics are interested in finding out about it. And as in the case with Jaime Maussan, presenting hard evidence and nobody wants to look at it. But also the spiritual matters. I interview him on my channel, and the channel is called Figo, Michael from Hinterschmidt-Rütti. And so I interview him there. He doesn't want to be on camera, so I just film myself. But you can hear him, and it's also subtitled in English and German. So he gives really, really good answers. And I also discovered, I asked him about gewaltsame Gewaltlosigkeit, which is sometimes translated as violent non-violence, but that is not, it's only partially translating it. But we leave it as that as right now, but it's not completely correct. But so I asked him about what that means. And he said it means speaking the truth. And I was kind of surprised that while speaking the truth, what does that have to do with violence and then non-violence, or violent non-violence? And then he says, the truth is, or Semjase says, the truth is always harsh. And the less we want to hear it, the harsher it is. So that's the violent part. But it's non-violence because you don't beat someone or so. You're just saying words. And so in the end, he said, nobody ever asked me that. He explains that in his writings, that what it means, but he was never asked about that. And I noticed that even though he wrote things down, that it's also changing what he's teaching. So as our knowledge increases, he sometimes explains things differently. And so people, so that I felt a bit this, I said, well, yeah, okay, I'm the first in 50 years who ask you this now. And he said, no, you're the first one in 80 years. So he already talked as a child about it. He's 87 now. So, and also got into trouble for that, of course. So, and then I thought, well, that must feel very lonely, you have the knowledge and you're the best teacher you could meet, and the people don't ask you the questions. So also with us, in the core group, we don't ask him enough questions, and people want to know, oh, what about this sighting and this UFO incident? No, this is so irrelevant. If you are still caught up in that, you are still kind of searching. But the path to wisdom, to becoming a true human being, that's not about those issues. That is asking about that. What is gewaltsame Gewaltlosigkeit? Or what means really ausgeartet? And then you have to think, well, where do I stand? And where do I want to go? And that is a process that, even for the Plejaren, they say we are not perfect. They make mistakes. And it's also in the contact reports. It has happened that they made a mistake. And yeah, so learning never stops. And yeah, it would be nice if more people would kind of discover that that read about it and see that it is true, and then ask him the questions as long as he's still alive. And so send in good questions, and I'll ask him. And yeah, that is what is basically about. And there's always more to tell, of course. He wrote I think at least 25,000 pages now. So the contact reports are about 10,000, and And then his books, 50 books, he wrote 50 books. And there's also books by others already. There's a biography written by Bernadette, who lives with him now 40 years, in Hinterschmidt-Rüdi, 45 years. And yeah, it's, there's maybe one more thing. It's like, it's when you start to take responsibility more and more, you also start to connect more with yourself. And then step by step, you can also connect better with others. And then these subtle energies come more in, that you notice that more and more. And that is kind of the path. And also that really wise people tend to live withdrawn, to kind of have their space, because they need that. And the Plejaren also say that we are terribly overpopulated. Like they say, like 500 million people would be like suitable for this planet. And Billy says it could be 1 billion or 1.5 billion could be sustained, but that would be already heavy on the earth. So I can assure you our population is absolutely unsustainable. And if you think logically about it, there will be, that will change. And that's why they say there should be a birth stop, and like for 7 years, and then women could have give birth for 1 year. Families could have a child during that 1 year, and then there should be a birth stop again for 7 years until the population would be reduced, and to a healthy level. And that is also what doesn't go so well with many people. Oh, you want to kill everybody? No, it's not about killing anybody. It's about that not so many people are born. That's all. And every woman can have a child or 2 or even 3, but not more than that. And that is also plenty, because if you have 8 children, you cannot give proper attention to 8 children, and to raise them properly and have the time for each child. So these are all very rational and reasonable arguments, I think. And but we keep ignoring it, of course. And we will reap the results, of course. And I talked to someone else, and I said, I mentioned overpopulation, and he said, that will take care of itself. And it will, but nature does it in a harsh way. So he's right. Nature will take care of it, but it will be in a harsh way. If you have like overpopulation in whatever with animals, there will be a mass dying at some point. And they keep if we don't interfere with the animals and the nature and our environment so much, they keep it in balance in general. We interfere more and more, and there's more disharmony and more problems, and then more people, and then more problems. So this is a gigantic problem, and again, people don't think about it, and of course politicians don't talk about it. It's not popular. More people means making more money, and we are living in a materialistic world, and that will also change at some point, but that will take still like centuries. And so Billy is making many prophecies, and prophecies can be changed. Predictions cannot be changed anymore. And so there's also a lot of things that are not so happy, doesn't make you happy reading it. But he says he's here to let people know, and humanity has to make those decisions for themselves, but that they know and they can change their ways. But in a few instances we did. So far we avoided nuclear war, but everything else we pretty much failed so far. So I think it's better we take care of the problem than nature, but it doesn't seem that way. And we are running out of time very quickly. But it's this mindset which is like, don't question authority. It's also religion-based already. We are as a child in school, sit down, keep your mouth shut, don't say anything, only talk when you're asked. That is, of course, already like you have to be obedient, and that is why nothing happens when even high politicians, it's obvious they committed a crime or so, nothing happens. Justice Department doesn't step in or so, and or other politicians. And so you see this problem from religion is not just, I'm not religious, for example. Yeah, but you are also indoctrinated through materialism, like, thousands and thousands of commercials, wanting more and more and more. This is so strong in us. I want this, I want that. And we are like the donkey that is kind of pulling the whole wagon, and just this carrot dangling in front of us. And you can do that with all of humanity. And that is, if you learn to think for yourself, then you cannot be fooled so easily anymore. And a whole different kind of dimension or awareness opens up, and you see the world differently, and you're more aware, and you become more in control of your own life. And that is worth the effort. So I can say so far for me. And that is what I also kind of, I'm thankful that I could speak here today, and that you're listening, and thank you for your attention. Yeah. Phobol, now there's kind of Q&A or a little break, or what do you think?
I have a question.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like what I spoke too long. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
It's yeah. Okay. I take question. Who wants to take a break takes a break, or who wants to leave can leave. So, yeah.
I was fascinated with the notion of the Pleiadians establishing religion. They were the nasty ones, apparently.
Yes.
And so apparently...
At that time, they were still warlike. So when they came here, that's like hundreds of thousands of years ago. So
religion is the detritus of what they did, establishing what they did. So since religion is BS pretty much, as from that point of view, do the Pleiadians have anything to say about the nature of what we call death?
Yeah, Billy also wrote a book about like rebirth, death, sorrow, and life, and it's a longer title. He describes that, like, I describe it like that. When we are awake and we go to sleep, we kind of process the experience of our life, of our day. And then you wake up and you make experiences again, and then in your sleep you process that again, kind of. And death is the same. It's like processing your whole life. What have I learned? And or go through these experiences, kind of, and analyzing them, kind of, and evolve. So, and then you and also important is not like every personality, or that the physical body is, of course, gone when you die. And and the consciousness continues. But when a person, when this consciousness is born again, it is a completely new personality. It has nothing to do with the previous one. And when we die, it's not like meeting, your grandparents or so. It's, this concept, for example, it isn't like that. It's so there's this analogy to dream and waking state. It's very close, and that you look at everything and it's we have this like, oh, this person did bad things, or so he will have kind of a bad rebirth or so. It's not like that like you have to see it from the point of view of the creation. The creation itself is not perfect. That's why it creates to learn and evolve. So we are all kind of, sometimes I like to say, like the guinea pigs of creation, and see, like, I create this and see how it works, and I create this and see how it works, and basically, and creation just wants to create, to learn. And if you think about when you're creative, like, you feel very alive. I mean, especially if you create something you really want to create, like it's deep inside you. It's like whether it's photography or whether it's painting or making music, it really enlivens you so much. And the creation, we are like small copycats of creation. And so the creation wants to create too and wants to learn. And once it's gone through this whole learning process, which is us and and many others, then it evolved to the point that it kind of, okay, now I know. And that I think is a huge picture. Like, even the creation is not perfect. Oh, then I don't have to be perfect either. So actually, you cannot be perfect. It's like they only speak of relative perfection, and I think that's very helpful. It's like there's absolutely nobody ever has been and never will be who's absolutely perfect. And Billy says, I made many mistakes in my life, but that's what you learn from. And if I would lead my life again, I would do it the same way again, because that were the mistakes he had to make to learn. And so that is also like what I can say when someone of us makes a mistake and the person says, yeah, I made a mistake, I will correct that, or I will not do it again. There's no word anymore. It's never mentioned again. But if the person kind of starts with excuses and this and that, then Billy starts. Then it kind of, and because to take responsibility, that's what's behind it. And then, but usually when, oh no, I didn't do that. Oh, it's now finger pointing starts, and no, that's not the way. When you made a mistake and it's obvious, then say, okay, I made a mistake. And that is, I like that very much in the core group. It's not like this putting others down or, try to be in a good light or so. That is what I really enjoy in the core group. And also that really nobody is religious or so, they all kind of are allergic to religion, I'm sorry. Like,
I just the Meiers came after the Anunnaki, perhaps. About the Anunnaki.
Yeah, I was asked about that, but actually I don't know. I even read a book about that by Jim Morris, but I still don't know anything about the Anunnaki. So because I found Billy to be a reliable source, or the play arm, what the information he was given. And I would have to check like the contact reports where they are maybe mentioned or so. But you can actually check it yourself. There's a website called futureofmankind.co.uk, not .com, Future of Mankind. And there's like there are all the contact reports, and there's also a search bar, and you can search any word. And if you type in Anunnaki, you should find something. If not, then they haven't talked about it. But they are like, a lot of these groups are like, they're reptilians and this and that, unfortunately often like used to, again, scare people, which is not helpful. And I don't give much attention to that. I mean, but the Plejaren, like on their planet, there were already people who had lived on their planet. And that was like 2 million years ago or so. So there were buildings on that planet when they found it, but another civilization had left. And now they're living on that planet. And so also our ancestry goes like a long time ago. But Billy says like humans evolved naturally on this planet, like just from animals, and then at some point humans will come. And so on this planet there are kind of, I'd say, like humans who evolved here naturally. And but then there are lots of groups who came here and left, and like certain Asian, I'm not sure if it's like the Japanese people or so, they came from a planet called Nissan, like the car brand, and other groups, where I said to Billy, man, we have so many different races. I cannot really imagine that they're all coming from the same source, So as they say, sometimes like mankind originated somewhere in Africa, and Billy says that's all nonsense, It's like
Why is it nonsense?
because we are obviously so different, and that we came from different places. There's someone of the FIGO compiled like information about the history of mankind, what is in the contact reports, and the title is "We Came from the Stars and then from Mars." And that's a really good title, because like I'm from Europe now, or Switzerland, and I come here, and it's no problem. Everybody accepts that. If I would have said that 600 years ago here, then they would have said, you're crazy, you can't come from there. But there's this like intercontinental exchange is normal for us now. And for them, it's normal, like interplanetary exchange. And once we have the technology, we will go out in space and explore it. And then say, we are looking right now for exoplanets that have water. So we want to know where water is, there's most likely life. And when there's life, there could be intelligent life. And so the Plejaren explore the galaxies and the universe, and we will too at some point. But we are still much further away than some people think. It's not that easy. It's really, really difficult to go deep into space and to hyperspace travel.
About violence.
Ask a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and finish
Okay.
the conversation.
Yeah, I would think that someone from another planet has the intelligence to come here, would not be interested in having weapons or using them or anything like that.
Well, Semyaza said there are also civilizations out there which are not so friendly. And we have to prepare for that. So I asked Billy, wouldn't it be best that we kind of pool our resources and brain power to build weaponry that could counteract that? And he said, yeah, sure. But this is not done. It's used competitively, and everybody is working on high tech in secret and building weapons in secret. And that will be could be a real threat in the future. And we deal with that the wrong way. We go after like objects. Well, this is not official, of course, but we in secret, the military all over the world, if they have the weaponry, they try to shoot down UFOs to get access to the technology. Because if you have access to that technology, Semyaza says, you can really rule the world. And so the Plejaren are peaceful, and you see there have been quite a few instances where like hostile action from our side was, and there hasn't been any retaliation. But Ptah warned about that. He said, maybe someday there will be a retaliation, and not by them, because their technology is so far advanced we can't even detect them unless they want to be seen. But that is a problem. We should rather learn to be like talk first, and make contact and investigate and have a peaceful attitude. And there's one thing that in general, just because there's a higher technology doesn't mean they're better people. Like the Nazis were kind of, this hasn't come out completely, but they had UFOs actually that were were able to go out in space, but travel at great speeds within the atmosphere. And Billy writes about it, that they went to South America. And just because they had better technology, which was really far ahead of American and other technology, but it was all at the end of the war when it was too late, fortunately, it didn't make them better people, So you can have like extremely high tech, and as Billy writes, there were people coming here also, like the elongated skulls, maybe you've heard that, or the long skulls, and they were extremely tyrannical, and they had high tech, and they governed this planet, like certain regions, for many millennia, and terrorized everybody. And as far as I know, like 3,500 years ago, like humans were fed up and then killed them, But they were like a royal caste, you could say, or aristocrats, and they were very cruel. So technology doesn't make you a good person, not at all.
You went for a long time talking about how we need to call back the population of the Earth. That's very much in the process, whether people are aware of it or not, because we had the pandemic, and now in observation, there's a tremendous now death rate that's occurring on the planet, whether people are aware of it or not, but I've looked at all the data and what have you on a global scale. It's amazing. And one of the oldest life insurance companies here in the United States is called Lincoln Life Insurance. And so they were interviewing the president, and he says, look, we're not scientists. We just read numbers because we have to know how much money we have to pay out every year. There has been a huge increase in death between the ages of 18 and like about 60, like a 40% increase. Their normal payout is between like 60 and 110, whatever it is. The older guys, those are the people they expect to pass away, and that's what they're used to paying out on. Now, all of a sudden, they have this about 40% increase of the age bracket that does not pass away in that time slot. So now they've got to pay out not only for the older crowd, they have to pay out all this money for the younger crowd. And they said, this is not adding up correctly.
Yeah, but what is your question? What is your question?
The question is your person, Billy, is he aware of what they were promoting as vaccines, which were never vaccines to begin with? but they use the word vaccine because you're familiar with that word and you'll get a
Yeah. He writes about the vaccines, but also the coronavirus, and they wrote all kinds of side effects of the vaccines. They like a whole list listed, and Svart showed him that, or as a child already, this time frame, and Svart said, like, from 2020 on, it will go downhill noticeably, like, and population not so, but like the how the society develops, that there's like more the family unit is falling more and more apart. For example, you got vaccinated or you did not get vaccinated. That was like such a family issue that families broke up about that. Like, oh, you don't get vaccinated, so you don't love us, and you harm us, and so, or political candidates, it's like breaks up families even today. And that are all kind of signs he described in prophecies, like that the family unit falls apart, like diseases increase, and if you think about it, and the natural disasters increase, there are like more floods, global warming, climate change. The climate change in the sense that the seasons kind of are not like that distinct anymore. The winters are warm, the summers are kind of rainy, and also the winters are kind of rainy, and so that the seasons kind of, the Tar said our climate is destroyed.
Does he mention chemtrails? Well, we know.
No. Oh yeah, he talked about it, but that they told him that our atmosphere is so changed through pollution that they arise from that. But I don't know if that is the only reason. So there might be other reasons too that contribute to that, or that there is maybe that they might really spray something, and that sometimes they're spraying and sometimes it's really an occurrence because of the change of our atmosphere. Our air is also changing. They say that the oxygen levels dropped already quite a bit, and so we are not so well oxygenated anymore.
Those lines, they did a test. You know what amber is? That's like a golden clear sap that comes out of the trees, and it drops into the water in the Baltic area and what have you. And a lot of times you'll find insects that are trapped in the air or air bubbles.
Yeah.
And they tested air bubble from a piece of amber that had developed, 2,000, 5,000 years, whatever it was. They found that we had 50% more oxygen in the air then than what we do now.
Yeah, that's possible.
A lot of people are not aware. You hear the word chemtrails. They exist. I take photos of them all over the place.
Yeah.
And the amount of aluminum that those chemtrails are dropping onto the surface of the Earth is off the charts. And barium, I'm not going to go on to it because I don't want to, take away all the everyone's time. But they did there's this one person, she retired. She moved to the Shasta area, which is in Northern California, where they have the mountains and the big lake up there. It's a very spiritual area. So she retired, and she had to do something because she wasn't doing anything. But her job for many, many years was testing the soil. And she was seeing all the chemtrails being sprayed up into the sky and what have you. So she couldn't keep from just testing the soil because she'd done that for her entire career. She said the aluminum is off the charts.
Yeah. I heard about those results.
These are things that your higher power needs to address and inform us. Because who is it that's spraying that? Our government does not say one word about it.
Yeah.
Who is spraying?
We are attacked on all fronts in our society, whether it's through health-wise, but also spiritual-wise, you could say. you know, with
Very direct.
and yeah, and there are things. Sometimes I ask him a question or so, and then he says, "Oh, that's a hot topic," he says, you know, and because certain people in power, whether it's the Vatican or the Pentagon, there are people, they know he's for real, and they read his stuff. And I can give you like one example. That was during Corona, and the death count was like between 3 and 4 million at the time. And Billy wrote in the contact, or he was given the number, but Bomunda told him the number, that the death count is about 8 point something million. And 2 days later, and we heard, like, there were several of us in the kitchen that day, like 2 days after or 3 days after the contact report, they said on German radio that it's estimated from the World Health Organization that the death count is actually much higher, around 8 million. And the point wasn't the first digit after the point was not exactly the same, but it was 8. So somebody read his material, obviously.
You cannot trust the World Health Organization.
Yeah, well, I didn't say that you cannot, but it was dropped right away again, you know. So I just want to tell you, they read his material at that level, and also the Vatican, etc., etc. But they would never acknowledge that he is telling the truth. And there are subjects like, for the mission is like that we have to change our thinking. We are still in this, I don't know how to translate it, but like Scheindenken, he says. Like, it appears to people that they're thinking. And of course they're thinking, oh, I have to go to the toilet. Of course that's a thought. But I mean, to think for yourself, like, well, like God said this and this, and he says the opposite, that you start to think, well, that's a contradiction. How can this be? That is then real thinking. But we read over that. And also in the news or so, we are just like consuming and not questioning what's going on. And I see you are questioning, but there are topics where he has to be a little careful, like whether it's 9/11 or, for example, with Kennedy assassination, he wrote about it already many years ago, you know, in the 70s when he started, 75, he couldn't say much about it. Now he said like, oh yeah, he wrote down that they told him, it's not, he said it, but, you know, intelligence and others were involved, you know.
Well,
and
I'll say
so
brief thing, which you'll find quite interesting. Just like what you say, I question stuff, and I don't necessarily let someone say ultimately what things are supposed to be. There was a map that was put out of the world, and the map had 4 different shades of red, from deep, deep red to very, very pale red. And you'll find this very interesting. The deep, deep red had the greatest amount of COVID and the greatest amount of death. The very, very, very pale and the most vaccines. The very, very pale red was almost no COVID at all, or no COVID, and almost no vaccines. The poorest countries, which had no money to do the vaccines, they had the most COVID, and those that had the least amount of shots because they had no money to buy the shots had almost no COVID. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. There are lots of these things, and we didn't get vaccinated. Like, I just can't say that. You know, we didn't get vaccinated. Though there were a couple of people, 1 or 2, I think, from the core group, in their job, it was kind of demanded, and they got vaccinated. You know, I wouldn't have done that, but that was, they wanted to keep their job or whatever. But I think you cannot be fired so easily. But so they did. But so that's, again, you have to take responsibility yourself. you know. And and also, like as with Kennedy, in the beginning he said, I couldn't write this, and now I can say, the intelligences like were involved, and she gives not like the names, but she says that this was an inside job. Yeah. But he couldn't write that in the 70s, for example. And now this is like COVID is still also a hot topic, and 9/11 also still hot topic. So, but it will, he says the truth tends to come out anyway. So even if he doesn't write it or so, for him it's more important. I mean, there have been enough attacks on his life. So, and certain things he says, this is not what I'm primarily here for. This is like, religion is the greatest problem. It's really religion. And then the second they say is overpopulation. And to correct that, people have to learn to think really for themselves. But also not to see, I mean, you start to see all the negative then, which you were kind of oblivious to before. You see this more open then, but not to get kind of fall into this trap of conspiracy theories and so on. For example, that's one example. But to go more this path of connection, because that is kind of what makes you happy, like to connecting with people and yourself, of course, first. And not to, I mean, that is kind of hard. Sometimes I too kind of say, oh man, the contact reports, now they're really heavy and I just don't want to read that. Then I'd rather read a book from him or so, where I can learn from kind of, and it's about conscious evolution, that you evolve in consciousness. And to be critical is only the first step, and to think for yourself. And then you see all this negative, you actually see how bad this world then is. But not to get stuck in that, but to then kind of continue and see that, oh, they're also positive people. They're just not on mainstream media. But I can also give you lots of examples, people who are completely unknown, who kind of green the desert with very simple methods, and in Africa or so. And if it were done what they're saying, Africa would already be quite a bit better. But they're also ignored. And then again, why are they ignored? Because everybody is kind of following some religion and not thinking for themselves. But it's to focus, to see that also, they're also there, and then to develop an activity that people can have hope, I think we will go through a hard time, but he also says that things will turn out okay. And then they will turn sour again. But but that is like the cycle we go through. It's
Next question.
Do you want to ask a question?
Yeah.
I have so many questions, but I don't know where to start. One of them is, I've been doing research for many years, especially about the power of healing sounds and vibration of our mind. And I do believe the power is within us to heal, to change everything within our mind, within our consciousness. However, I do observe, living in a metropolis like New York, that there are entities, or it might be from other universe, or that have been affecting and have created technology like HARP, like since 1975, 5G, 4G, that is affecting. And I don't
absolutely. Yeah.
I need to know if the aliens, what do they say? If that's part of our process to go to that pain, to that manipulation, or what can we do to really stop that from affecting the wills of people, the life, the hurt? Because living right here in New York, for example, right now we have so many energies interacting with us and affecting biologically, affecting our DNA, affecting the levels of energy that they were in our mind and brain function, etc. I'd like to know also I don't research that it's over 185 ET races that have been identified among the millions of them that have been interacting with planet Earth or our solar system, and some of them are not benevolent, have been manipulated and controlling us with technology, because that's what they have, like hard, like 5G now, it's called 6G, we're discussing a lot of. Is that how can they help us, or what is their view of this?
Well, they talk about like that also a little bit, maybe that like 5G of course isn't healthy, and all these things affect you. So I wouldn't want to live in a city anymore. I lived like for 16 years in Hamburg, which is like.
I prepare this is aluminum and copper, because I cannot walk without this street.
Yeah. It's like it's like.
I also use copper in me, special thing, because the energy is so strong. But can you imagine, there are so many people out there unconscious about this energy, people that are getting.
Yeah, like Mark, who's living with us, he's American, and he senses like Wi-Fi, like, or the Wi-Fi is here like terrible, he says, and I say, I don't know, but you see, we are all different, and but if for example if a person is very sensitive to that, so then the only thing you can do is move out of the city. I mean, even and then again, I have a good job here, I have a good job here. Yeah, well, then what's your priority? But we
the benevolent intentions of the Pleiadian, which I do believe they have very, very, the way you've been talking, the volume of your voice showing peace inside you, your serenity and your benevolent energy. How can they help us at this moment that,
Yeah, they have a directive of non-interference. They don't even, once they tried, or they sent like a signal to one of what they call foreigners, one of the other groups that are present here. Whether they're from another planet or they're living here permanently, there are also a few groups living here permanently in hiding. I don't know. But there was no response, and they said they were obviously not technologically evolved enough to even pick up their signal, and that was it. They said, we don't want to have any contact. And that's a general, though they are here already for a very, very long time observing, they always stayed in the background, like also from the other groups that are here. And they do not interact because it tends to create problems. It's like, also, all this migration, it brings more and more problems because there are different cultures. And to say, we are all the same. Yeah, of course, we're all the same as humans. But just cultural differences is not easy. Like if one is black, the other is white, there's no problem that, but you will see there's also different culture. And then you see, they really think and feel differently about many issues. And then it's not so easy sometimes for that couple, for example. And so to bring these different cultures kind of in a clash together, that's not so good. And there's nothing that people migrate like, but these mass migrations are very problematic. And also with the technology, our technology outpaces our spiritual development by far. And that is up to us to decide, today I read something from Billy, or, whatever inspires me, and think about how can I be a better person? Or how does that work with consciousness? Or where are my feelings kind of originating from? Or, to look at those things, because that is affecting your life. How can I gain control over that? Not control like controlling a person or so, but to control in a sense that, a bit kind of controlling in the sense that the feelings do not control you, but you control your feelings. Not suppress them, but control them. Like when you become angry, that you are aware, become aware of it, and then say, well, this is not a good state, and acknowledge that to yourself, and then say, okay, the only thing that works against that is to develop positive thoughts. And then think, okay, I'm healthy. Oh, I can be grateful for that. And then this negative mood kind of starts to lighten up again. So you get to this neutral positive state again. And that is also when you're in the news, you're confronted all the time with negativity. So I don't watch much news, because if you read Billy's prophecies, you know what's going to happen anyway. I don't have to watch the news and tell me what's going to happen in Ukraine. I know the Russians will win, And so instead of watching the news over and over again, I followed kind of the war news for a while. I thought, this is just depressing, And even though, both people die on both sides, And I don't want to confront myself with that all the time, because it drags me down. And then, so I acknowledge that to myself, and then put my focus somewhere else, because it doesn't make me happy. And then, when I read something from Billy, or so I learn something, then, okay, then I can go to bed and say, I learned something today, instead of just consuming negative news. And when you cannot live with all this, the Wi-Fi here is horrible in the city. I don't feel it strongly, but I'm not that sensitive in that sense. But if you are, then you have to see what's my priority. Do I stay and be miserable, or do I find somewhere rural area? I just came from Vermont, and it's I went there last year the first time, and I said, something's wrong here, Something is different, And then I met my friend there, and he said, we have no billboards. And I said, oh, that's it, You're not bombarded with these commercials all the time, even if it's just print. And of course, lots of nature. It's a beautiful state. And I love the US. So you have the national parks, and you have this, I call it this wildness in nature, which is in Europe, it's a lot more this domesticated nature, Trees are standing in line like soldiers. And so, and here it's everything is growing wild, and I love that. That is just nice to see. And and that is also where you can really draw a lot of energy from. Or Billy recommends to walk barefoot if you can. Very, very helpful. But in this city, where do you want to it's better than not to walk barefoot, but you should actually walk barefoot on the soil. And here's everything cemented. You would have to go to Central Park to actually walk on the soil, on the earth.
I go every night. I take my shoes at 43rd Street. There is a promenade. And I do my qigong there.
Yeah, right. That's a good thing. But right. And the energies in the morning it's good to rise rather early. I'm not a good student in that. But it's for your inner clock. It's better. You're better clocked, and
it's the brilliance and leaving us to do whatever we have to do. They are not interfering in a way to try to neutralize all these technology created by entities like, HARP.
Yeah, I mean,
Satellite signal.
yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on with HARP. I mean, I watched several documentaries and so on. It's certainly not beneficial. I think it's fair to say that. But again, we cannot change that in Alaska. And the threat, there are also lots of, like if you read UFO books, lots of that threat here and threat there. And now also in the media, we don't know what the phenomenon is, but it's a threat to national security. So how can you say it's a threat to national security if you don't even know what the phenomenon is? So all they know now is that it's real. Of course it's real. The UFOs are real, but they're not a serious threat. And the greatest threat is us pointing nuclear weapons at each other. And that's not the extraterrestrials doing it. It's not extraterrestrial A and B building these weapons and putting them up. That is really us. And just as our politicians don't want to take responsibility and say, oh, this is all nonsense, this weapon trade, our heads of state are the greatest weapon traders in the world. If you say, my friend is a weapons trader, we say, stay away from me, I don't want to have anything to do with you, if you mingle with those people. They're the biggest in the world. The very biggest is the US president. Yeah. And then like China and Russia and so on. So we wouldn't mingle with those people. But we don't think about that, do we? We know it, but we don't think about it. And so it just keeps going. But if you really think, that's what Billy says, if you really think, and this is what I cannot explain, Scheindenken is like, you have this thought, you hear it, but tomorrow it's forgotten. But if you really think about it, then it's not forgotten tomorrow and say, oh, this is really not right. I shouldn't even pay any attention to what they're saying because they're opportunists. They're saying this today, they only say what to get the vote. And then they do what they want anyway. This is over, go. If it's Europe, it doesn't matter where you're, Asia, it's the same everywhere. And this only works because people are not willing to face the truth, because someone like Ron Paul, he said things that were very uncomfortable. He said, like, I would abolish the Federal Reserve. It's exploiting the whole world, and mainly America. So, he had 5% of the airtime compared to the other candidates. So, but if more people were really thinking, he would have gotten the support. He would have gotten the donations, and then he would have gotten automatically more airtime. But we are not at that yet. And so even though I see that things go down, I kind of try to pursue aims where I can make a difference, even though it's maybe just talking to a few here. But that makes me happy. And okay, you listened. And hopefully you take something for your life from this. And instead of trying to change them. But he also says, you won't change the current generation, but the next generation, there can be quite a bit of change. And that from generation to generation. And but for your life, set yourself goals which make kind of what's in your heart, kind of, and what you want to do, and where you say, oh, I can help people with that or this, and try to do that. And if you focus on that too much, I know of all these problems more or less, but then you get dragged into this rabbit hole and this dark hole, and it's hard to get out. It's like, I've been there. I've been like a hardcore conspiracy theorist for years, many years. And then at some time, you just feel miserable all day. You have only negative thoughts, and a bird is flying through there, or that might be a drone. That's like, you don't see anything positive anymore. And then I said, no, this has to stop. This is not good for me. And then I took that was in 2005. Then I said, I have to develop more positive thoughts but also kind of really a change of focus, And it's really where you point your attention. If you see everything dark, then you will see conspiracy theories everywhere and problems everywhere. And many of them might be true, but that's what your consciousness works on all the time then. But if you have a positive attitude, and then as I changed there, then I found people who have incredible solutions. So simple. There's this man, unfortunately it's a difficult name, in Niger, in Africa. He discovered if you dig holes, and then they're planting seeds and small bushes, and to slow down the wind, and then the erosion stops. And he created this little forest there in the middle of the desert or half desert. And as a thank, the ignorance of the other people, someone burned it down then.
What?
Yeah. So you see how crazy we are. They're living there in the Sahel zone, always kind of water's the most precious thing there. And he helps to create plant life there, bushes which were really high already, and many of them where there were nothing. And it was hard work to digging the ground, and many people helped him. And he showed this works. This is an ancient method. He kind of rediscovered. And there's also a documentary about him, but hardly anybody knows him, also in Africa. And that is why is it so hard for us to talk about the solutions? Because there are solutions. And just as Billy has solution for our spiritual development, there are also many technical solutions. And but we like to also Stanley Meier building a water car, and then he was poisoned, unfortunately, he had a patent, he was on TV, but he kept a certain thing secret in the patent, which isn't mentioned in the patent. He kept that to himself. And so the information doesn't get out. And it's always this trying to control something or the greed factor to make a lot of money that destroys everything again, And you see, again, the spiritual problems are the root of it.
Florida, the incident 15 years ago of water.
Yeah. I mean, there are lots of patents like that, and they're just bought out. Yeah. You had a question.
Yeah. The contact, I don't know whether to call them people or not, but the contact beings, are they invisible to us, or are they like people that walking around with us?
They are visible when they want to be visible. I mean, they're humans like us. And in secret, there's also military working on camouflaging soldiers that they are invisible or almost invisible, But their technology is so advanced they are completely invisible. So Billy said to me, Quetzal could be with us here in the office and you wouldn't even notice him at all unless he would make maybe a noise or so. And also, you couldn't even sense his energy. Let's say you're a very sensitive person, or sometimes you're watched and let's say you're in the forest and I feel watched, and you turn around and there is somebody looking at you. So we have this ability to sense someone else, just if he's or she is looking at us. And I mean, everybody can sense that. Almost everybody, I'm sure. And when somebody stares at us, because the attention, the energy goes our way. And but they can shield it, even that. So you would have no idea if Quetzal were standing here, maybe listening in our room, So but for Billy, there are also telepathic contacts, but most of them are in person, and they prefer to talk like we do. I think we don't have much choice.
They're not Plegerans?
Well, they're Plejaren, but they're humans like you and me. They're just the earlobes are a little bit longer, but Quetzal has walked among us, you know, and also I think also visibly. I don't know, but you know, like quite recently he was like in the next town from Hinterschmidt-Rüti or from Schmidt-Rüti, and he said this one woman, you know, she looked terrible. She had so much paint in her face, you know. She had a lot of makeup, you know. So I think he was invisible to her, but yeah, it's like they do, some of them do that, like Bermuda, she never leaves the spacecraft and she only gets into Billy's office, and she is like never mingling. She's super safe and super security, like she doesn't want to take the risk. And but others like Semyazo or Quetzal, they are more adventurous, I'd say.
So how do they play it? Do they play it into imagination? I mean, out imagination.
Kind of what play of game of imagination?
Well, I mean, I wonder about imagination, where it comes from, and there's communication through that.
Yeah, for example, they try to influence, like, generally or more often scientists through impulses, but these impulses, like, then they have an idea and they think it's of course their idea, but and in a sense it is, but it's basically inspired through these impulses. But it's neutral in the sense that if they don't want to pick it up or if they're not open to it, they just don't have that idea. And sometimes I also have, like, for the documentary or other things, I have sometimes ideas where I think, that's a really good idea, you know? I wonder if it's from me. So, but in the end, it is really from you, you know? But they're kind of, it's helpful, you know? And also when you read it in German, Billy's material, it's coded, it says, it means there's like a hidden code in there, so you receive certain impulses that would help you that are supportive in your conscious evolution. Yeah, but most people, nothing much happens. But I mean, you don't feel it. You can't sense it. It's so subtle. And it's neutral. It's not like I'm manipulated. It's not like that. It's not like in our world we are bombarded with harm or other energies, or and it really influences our thinking, or many people's. But again, that's your choice. Once you become aware of, now you can make a choice. The others are running around like sheeple, you know. But you can now kind of decide, no, I take responsibility for my thinking. I go by the facts, and okay, this and this, all these negative things happen. You become more aware of that, and maybe, and also in the news, they're lying again, you know. And this can't be true. But then you can decide, well, do I continue listening to them, to their propaganda, or, well, maybe I read a good book. Or, you know, I call my friends and say, hey, let's go to the movies, or, you know, so socializing.
Something happened to me along the lines of what you're talking about. I attended the World Conference on Water in Indonesia recently, and there was one person that I especially wanted to meet, but since it was being attended by 74,000 people, I was not the only one who wanted to meet this person. So finally I had to come to the conclusion, look, I've got other things to do, conferences and one thing and another. So I'm just going to do it. And then I saw on the bulletin board, there's one conference I especially wanted to attend in room 508. So I go up to the 5th floor to room 508 and see a vacant chair up front. I don't want to miss anything. So I go run up there and grab it. And every chair had a little miniature desk so you could take notes. So I sit down, get my composure, and I'm like, someone left a card behind. I look at the card. It's the card of the person.
Yeah. 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 That's convenient, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
That was divine intervention.
Yeah, and that is it's not divine, but I know what you want to say. It's I asked Billy about synchronicities. You know, where you meet the right person at the right time. How can this be? You know, sometimes it happens in a row even, and then he says, well, that happens. That are what we sometimes describe as synchronicities because we don't have a better word for it or so. But it's it usually only happens when you're relaxed. If you're tense, everything goes wrong. You know, that's my experience. I mean, you have to make your own experience. But that is also generally in life. The more relaxed I am, the smoother things go. And sometimes, you're late, or start to rush, and then it already starts. I already put out the tension through my thinking, and then start to manifest unfavorably. That happens in minutes. Yeah. So it's really important to stay relaxed. I couldn't, and that's what meditation is for. And Billy's meditation is really, really good. It's like, I thought, in Tibetan Buddhism, my meditation was a lot more advanced, you know. But it's actually delusional meditation where you imagine things which aren't real. And, but like to really focus, learning to really focus, then that's where your energy goes. And that's where you can if you have a task to do, you can do it much better if you're really focused. And meditation is very helpful to train in that. It's also what you need to train. But at the same time, with focus, but also to relax. And then kind of, if you can keep that, a relaxed concentration, that's like excellent. But because concentration, we tend to tense up. And relaxation, we tend to kind of be lazy, like too loose, you know. So to have this relaxed concentration, if you can keep that like up permanently, that is, then your life should go smoothly. Or you should certainly be able to deal with everything life throws at you, you know. Billy doesn't lead an easy life, you know. 25 attacks on your life and a horrible wife, you know. He really suffered under her, and who nicknames his wife cannibal, you know? So, but she was true, energy-wise, she was, and but so you see. And it was meant to be. So I said, well, that's a bad choice. I said, you know, if that was the plan, you know, but it was necessary to kind of go through with the mission, you know, to be committed, and also to, if you go through hardship, those, especially people who go through a lot of hardship, but kind of keep this positivity or kind of work through it and not be miserable, but like say, that was hard, but now I'm fine again, and are positive. Those people are really strong. That are really strong people. People who always had an easy life, you never know. When they're in trouble, you don't know if they're they're still your friends, or, you know, you might be in hospital. Do they come and visit you, or, you know, not? That's like, hardship doesn't have to be bad. It can also be necessary. And like going to the dentist, he hurts you more before it gets better. So it's what you need to go through. Okay, I think we have to wrap it up here.